Marfoogle 2 live in 3, 2. All right, what is going on, guys? It is Adam A.K. Marfin. This is Marfoogle TV. Colombia's president lashes out at the barbarian Trump over the boat attacks. Remember, this is Colombia, not Venezuela. Colombia has been getting pretty cozy with Venezuela. They say that out of Bogota, Colombia, intelligence is not for killing. Colombian President Gustavo Petro told NBC News in a wide-ranging interview Wednesday explaining his decision to stop sharing information with the United States in opposition to lethal strikes on boats allegedly carrying illegal drugs. Now, remember, Colombia has been a sort of ally of sorts, and they are the ones saying they're going to stop sharing information. Remember, UK just said that they were also stopping their sharing of information in certain areas, which they're part of the Five Eyes Club. So it's kind of crazy that we're seeing multiple countries saying that they're, basically protesting this. Describing President Donald Trump as a barbarian who wants to frighten us, Petro, a former Marxist revolutionary and one of the few international leaders willing to openly criticize his American counterpart, called the U.S. military buildup in the Caribbean undoubtedly an aggression against Latin America. Colombia would not pass on the information because he would be collaborating with the crime against humanity. Again, he goes so far to say that this is a crime against humanity. It says he told NBC News at the presidential palace in Bogota, reiterating his decision announced earlier this week, acknowledging the most key thing is intelligence in combating the drug trade. He added, the more that we coordinate intelligence, the better. That is what I have been doing, but intelligence is not for killing. Since when? And I'm not trying to take a side on either side here, but intelligence is for what? I'm super confused. Intelligence has always been for killing. That is what every single country uses it for. When they get intelligence, hey, this guy is here. They drop a bomb on them. They get intelligence that this guy is here. Oh, they set up a bomb 6 months in advance. They kill him. When intelligence gets information that somebody's there, it's just funny to me that they're saying it's not for killing. What are you talking about? That is literally most of what intelligence is used for. It's kind of stupid. But we're going to go over this. It is getting closer and closer to what some are saying, an imminent invasion of Venezuela. And now you can see all of these other kind of countries and people that are most likely on somebody's payroll coming forward. We'll talk about that and much more on today's episode of Marfoogle TV. We'll be right back right after this. Nothing in this show should be considered legal, medical, or financial advice. The views of the callers can differ considerably and do not necessarily reflect my opinion, Dex's opinion, or anyone else who works with the show. You should always do your own research and consult with professionals. The internet is full of fake news, so please take everything with a grain of salt. If you have not already, it helps us out if you end up going through any of our affiliates, and it helps you out if you end up protecting yourself against cybercrime. NordVPN is one of the best and one of the easiest to use. If you do not have a virtual private network, it protects your IP address, which is your online identity, which actually connects to your real address and everything else. It also connects to you. If you know anything about how they are data logging and basically getting your profiles down, you can prevent that by having a VPN. Nord is, again, one of the easiest. Download it. It's like an on switch and off switch. All you have to do. Go to marfooglenews.com/VPN. Not only will you get a giant discount on this, but you will also be helping us. I appreciate your support, and I appreciate everyone that goes through any of our affiliates. Can't say thank you enough. All right, what is going on, guys? It's Adam A.K. Marfin. This is Marfoogle TV. So I want to point out one thing before we move on. And I just want to point out that this whole interview in itself, the interview of this Colombian president, to organize something like that, there's several things you have to think about. Like, how did this interview even happen with NBC, right? Did the Colombian president say, hey, U.S. media, I want to talk to you? Or did the NBC reach out to them? Who in the staff at NBC says, hey, we should try to go to Colombia, get into the presidential palace, talk to him, and all of this? Like, Colombia's, they're on friendly terms, so it's not like it's hard, but you don't see it that often. So you really wonder, like, how did this interview get put together? And my opinion is that something like this, it's like the same people that are his buddies and these buddies and most likely get invited to something like, a camp in the woods in California. Those same people essentially are able to connect and communicate. And then all of a sudden you've got an NBC, interview. It reminds me of like when they interviewed the leader of that group taking over Syria, who at the time of the CNN interview was actually had a $10 million bounty on his head from when he was with Al-Qaeda. All of a sudden, CNN is not only able to find him, secure him, and put him into a small room with a camera right in front of him, which again, in past situations, they've put weapons in those cameras and just taken them out, spy, style. But instead, they interviewed him and shared his side and how he's like, well, I've grown a lot. I've grown since the Al-Qaeda days. Like, I no longer blow myself up. Now I'm a revolutionary that wears a blazer. I mean, it's just stupid. So you have to really think about this from the perspective of, like, how did this happen? Because then you start realizing, like, how did the strings get pulled to continue this narrative that we're not only committing crimes against humanity, which we could be. Again, there's two different sides of this. There could be one big cover-up and then one big, attack on whatever the president does. It doesn't matter what he does. They're going to attack it. So either way, you have to think about, like, how is this getting put into the back of our heads? All of the media is putting something into your head, and you really have to just ask a question. Like, nobody's asking, like, how did this even come up? The Colombian president. Understandably, he's been in the news a lot. Let's bring in my co-internet brother, Dex James. What is going on, and how are you doing today?
Well, hello, Adam, and hello, Fugel fam. I'm doing just fine.
I don't know if I communicated that well, but what I'm saying is, like, these interviews and these very, very timely kind of statements, intelligence is not for killing. Like, that's going to be on somebody's poster when they're protesting outside the White House this week, now that he's said it. You know what I mean? Like,
look, he had to make the decision to go on the interview, right?
Yeah.
I'm sure every major outlet was knocking on the door when he spoke out the other day. I'm sure they're dying to talk to Maduro and get anybody they can that they think is going to be important in this field to go on camera with them. So I'm sure the invitation was always there, but he had to make the choice to do it, and to go on, a big channel like that. Then he's intentionally putting this message out through that medium,
which is going to be syndicated across the country through every single network. And you have to understand, like, when somebody like him decides to, he doesn't have to. They can interview him for a million different things that are going on in Colombia. They don't. When they have these really professional sit-down interviews that everybody shows, that everybody shares, and they take those snippets, to me, it seems like it's coordinated and it's planned and it's meant to be put in front of as many eyes as possible, so you absolutely see that comment. That's what people are going to remember. Intelligence is not for killing. Like, please. That is all that intelligence is ever used for. The picture's on screen right now. Heck, how do you think they took that boat? That boat was taken out using intelligence. And again, that's what they're arguing, that they're using our intelligence and our satellite images to kill somebody. Oh, I'm sorry. How do 99.9% of our weapons work? With satellite images and intelligence. So yeah, pretty stupid to me, but what do you guys think? Let me know in the comments down below. Dex, all of the men 18 and over on their birthday are now supposed to do what in Germany?
Yeah, they're going in for a military medical exam. So back in 2011, they shut down full mandatory conscription. And they're doing their best to not go back to it, but they're hoping that maybe what we can do is just have every male not necessarily get conscripted at the moment, but let's at least check them for military medical exam so we know who's available if we need to pull them in. They're hoping that they're going to be able to get and meet their recruiting numbers for the Bundeswehr, which is another 80,000 professional soldiers to hit their NATO target strength of 260,000. But given, the potential for conscription and all the other NATO countries talking about it, especially if war ramps up quickly, they're going to need, warm bodies on the front line, so to speak, rather quickly. So for them to do this, it's sort of a half-hearted way of conscripting everybody by at least putting down a list of who would actually be qualified medically, if they should so need to call them. But they're trying to present it as, we're not really turning on the conscription engine just yet.
Which to me, this is also a way, and I don't believe that this is a normal doctor's visit. I'm pretty sure that they go to a base to do this, and I could be wrong. So please correct me if you're out there. If you're in Germany and you've already done this, please let me know. But I'm pretty sure it would be the equivalent of mandatorily getting people to come to the base and at least hear a spiel, right? I mean, couldn't, when they're in this doctor's medical exam for the Army, which I'm assuming is given by the Army, that would be a chance for the Army then to go like, hey, would you like to sign up? Just the sheer numbers of people that may not go into recruiting office, but if they did, they would get talked into it. What if that is part of this too? Then once they go into this, they have a recruiter there that's like, hey, son, can I take you out to lunch? Can I take you to a movie? Can I take you to dinner? I mean, that's how recruiters are right now. I mean, if it wasn't a military recruiter, people would be like, what the hell's going on here? Do you get what I mean?
Oh, yeah, exactly. And that's what they say. The hope is that obligating all young men to muster up for the Bundeswehr inspection after their 18th birthday will ease them into the recruitment, or ease them into that recruitment and get over some of the problems that they've had with people not wanting to have any familiarity or go anywhere near recruitment because they think badly of it. So this is a sort of a forceful way to make sure that every man, when he turns 18, gets put in front of the recruitment office.
Now, there's some numbers put out in here, and I want to read these. This is pretty important. The reserve, which can at present draw on only 34,000 active members, is facing much more dramatic overhaul, as military planners estimate that the number will ultimately have to rise to 200,000. So they want to add 100 and what is that? 156 or 66,000 recruits to that. So that's a huge number to find. All right. And then it says the hope that is obliging all young men to muster for this, that it will ease them into doing it. Well, that's exactly what ends up happening. And when you're 18, you are definitely, not exactly the smartest person on the world. You think you've got the whole world figured out, but you really haven't, right? Mind you, when I was 18, I was trying to get into the military because of my tattoos at that point that they wouldn't let you in. Then they opened it up so that you could do tattoos, and then you couldn't, and then you couldn't. Yeah, like in my high school, there were several of us that like it was on a regular basis. You had recruiters coming to your school, taking you to lunch, taking you out. You need a jacket? Let me go buy you a jacket. I mean, they had these like, what do you call? They had these like vouchers that they would use. Basically back then it was like a check that they could use to like get you stuff so you could freaking, so they could wine and dine you basically. I just remember, they were so, if you've ever had, folks come to your door and ask to come inside. And when you say, oh, maybe tomorrow, and they show up tomorrow, and then you say, maybe next Wednesday, they will show up at Wednesday, 2:00. There's some groups that do that. That was like this on steroids. It was like, they were there every single day trying to get folks. And I'm believing that they're going to have to do that again, too, with how our youth are. They are not going to be able to hit our recruitment numbers here in the U.S., let alone, in Germany, where they've been protesting this, and the youth there are even more against the military than we are now. I don't know if you've seen some of the stories we covered about them. Amarillo Gunrunners says other countries know from history that public opinion shapes policies. Going on U.S. TV interviews is wise. Yep, and again, it gets this preemptive message out. They get to strike first, right? It's not always a weapon that needs to strike first. Sometimes it's intelligence. Even him going on that show is part of an intelligence operation, I'm sure. So, yeah, good point. Damian Griffin, WIS Jen, Shirley Melward, thank you so much. Bobby Sue, thank you for modding. I appreciate it. And thank you for saying thank you to Amarillo. All right. And then top Ukrainian ministers submit their resignations as the country is rocked by a corruption scandal. What a shocker. Corrupt Ukrainian officials? Come on. Get out of here. Dex, I don't believe this. This has got to be fake news.
Yeah. Is this The Onion or Babylon Bee? What is it?
Yeah, right? This has got to be a parody. Do you want to talk about this obvious parody and what is happening over there?
Well, certainly, they're saying that, of course, as the war is continuing on, there's major embezzlement and kickback scandals involving state-owned nuclear power company has put the top officials under scrutiny. It's fast becoming one of the most significant government crises since Moscow's full invasion, with media reports implicating a close associate of President Vladimir Zelensky. Responding to a public backlash, Zelensky called for the dismissal of his justice and energy ministers amid the investigation. They later submitted their resignations, the prime minister said. Anti-corruption watchdogs, the same agency Zelensky sought to weaken earlier this year, revealed a finding of a 15-month investigation, including 1,000 hours of wiretaps, resulting in the detention of 5 people and another 7 linked to about 100 million in kickbacks in the energy sector. The Ukrainian officials are scrambling for European funds to manage mounting energy shortages as Moscow targets critical infrastructure. And so while they're having these power problems, they're finding out that the people running their power in the country has just basically snuck out $100 million out of it.
So in recruiting, so in the top military structure, and now in the power and industry, all of those were corrupt, and still nobody is in jail. Just a bunch of resignations to where they go back home to their $9 million mansion and supercars. I'm pretty surprised. So if you don't know, the 9 people right under Zelensky, up to like his second right-hand man, from what I understood, all of them resigned because there was some big scandal. Then there was a recruitment scandal where the recruiters that were running the Ukraine military recruiting somehow snuck out a huge, giant chunk of money. And you then go back to the last 4 years of all of this money that was given just indiscriminately, just money being thrown and thrown and thrown for the world's security. And it just really makes you wonder, like, how much of that actually went to this war? And if all of this, if that $100 million went towards actual fixing of things, would they still be out of power right now? If all of the money actually went towards military gear, would they be taking over Russia right now? It's hard to see stuff like this and not go like, what the F, right? All right, and then before we move on, make sure to go check out EMP Shield. I told you guys to wait, and I would not wait any longer because I was telling you guys this because November is infamous for their crazy sales, especially around Black Friday. It is here. It is, again, the Veterans Day sale that has continued, and this is 25% off on top of our $50 off discount per device. Now, this is a device that will not only protect your cars, trucks, motorcycles, boats, generators, gas generators, solar in the Energy and Bug Out XP, your home, your Starlink system. There's one for everything. And it will not only protect you against a CME from the sun, so a natural attack from the sun, but it will also protect you against any of our adversarial EMP attacks. Again, go over to marfooglenews.com/EMP and make sure to use the code MARF. You're going to get the $50 off, and you are, of course, going to get that 25%, up to 25% off again as well. Now, that stacks, that goes up and up and up. All of a sudden, if you've outfitted 3 different cars, 3 different devices, now you've got $150 off from us, and then, again, another huge 25% off from them. So make sure to go check it out right now, marfooglenews.com/EMP, and make sure to use the code MARF. It takes just a couple minutes to put in your car, less than that, 10 seconds to plug into your Starlink or modem, most of them are plug and play besides the home and a few of the others. So make sure to go check it out, Marfoogle News. All right. And then Canada says Russia and China are ramping up spy efforts in the Arctic region. So just anything like this where we have no way to verify any of this, no mainstream media, definitely not BBC Verify that alters and edits videos to their whim. None of them are really able to verify any of this. So you really got to take this with a grain of salt, but also realize that if there is any truth to this, that there's something obviously going on. I don't need somebody to tell me that because I'm knowing, right? I know there's tons of craziness happening right now and we're close to a war. Dex, do you want to talk about, why this is important and like why this could very well be, critical right now?
Yeah, Canada's domestic spy agency says Russia and China have a significant intelligence interest in Canada's Arctic, and they're targeting both the country's government and its private sector. So in his annual speech on the threats facing Canada, Dan Rogers, the director of the Canadian Security Intelligence Services, flagged mounting concerns over hostile nations growing increasingly emboldened in the Arctic. He said it's not a surprise that the CSIS has observed both cyber and non-cyber intelligence collection efforts targeting both government and private sectors in that region. Canada has increasingly flagged the navigable routes that pass through the country's borders and the troves of critical minerals in the region as a reason to increase the investment in the north. In addition to new heavy icebreakers, Canada is weighing the purchase of a dozen patrol submarines. In the federal budget unveiled last week, Canada announced a $1 billion in Canadian dollars, about 710 US dollars, for Arctic Infrastructure Fund to help build new airports, seaports, and all-season roads up into the Arctic area. So obviously, we know China really has a vested interest in the Arctic. They don't have any land there, so they have to piggyback off of their partnership with Russia or just use water and ice. They also have that vested interest in the new shipping lanes that they just opened for the first time that go across the northern tips of Russia through the Arctic where the ice has receded to get over to, say, Northern Europe in a fraction of the time, like half the time that it would have taken for them to go through the Suez Canal all the way around India and into the Suez Canal and then across the Mediterranean, then back up into North Europe. So there's a lot of interest in the Arctic. And of course, there's huge strategic interest as it relates to not only war positioning and defense positioning, but also integration and working directly with everything in space. The Arctic has an optimal position, and we've seen even Pawtucket in Greenland, which is one of the big U.S. bases, has a lot that it plays into with the Space Force and what's being invested in space now.
And just to point out, it says he also said Chinese spies have tried to recruit Canadians with information and military expertise. Again, do you think that China is really going after Canada, or do you think that they are going after Canada because Canada is key and right above the U.S.? And just to show you how connected it says, in addition to threats from China and Russia, Rogers said that the agency foiled potentially lethal threats by Iran. It says his remarks are the first public confirmation that the agency has intervened to protect Canada-based critics of Tehran. CSIS has said previously it was investigating Iranian threats, but did not mention specific threats. Quote, in particularly alarming cases over the last year, we've had to reprioritize our operations to counter the actions of Iranian intelligence services and their proxies who have targeted individuals they perceive as threats to the regime. In more than one case, this involved detecting, investigating, and disrupting potentially lethal threats against individuals in Canada. Now, who would that be? Somebody that speaks up against, their country? There is one instance, I can't say who they are, but they are a YouTuber that was essentially threatened and ended up having to go through the whole rigmarole of they were afraid for their life, ended up contacting authorities. They said that they asked them if they had said anything about that country. So that's like pretty freaky when you think about it. Just any regular person that has any kind of pull says something negatively about a country, then all of a sudden you have to worry about, your livelihood or your life. Right? In more than one case, this involved detecting, investigating, disrupting these threats against individuals in Canada. And that's in Canada. Think about what is going on in the United States. Think about all of the stuff that's happening here. But just to tie it together again, Iran, Russia, China, North Korea, all of these, and Venezuela, all of them are so tightly connected right now. They all have their treaties, their connections, their strategic partnerships, but their intelligence agencies are all working together. So this is a very freaky time. If this scares you, then you're probably watching the wrong channel. But to make it clear, I believe that there is something going on to undermine the U.S., obviously, and that they're planning something massive. And I sure hope that that does not happen. And then we may have to evacuate Tehran. This is another piece that we've been following because of the drought and so many things happening. They say that Tehran is actually sinking. And now they're talking about an actual evacuation. So this is pretty wild to think about. This is a major, major city. And they said that essentially because of the situation that they are almost in need of evacuation. Dex, do you want to go over what possibly could happen if this goes down?
Yeah, so there's a prayer. May God protect this country from the enemy, from drought and from lies. And that thus prayed Darius the Great, the ancient Persian emperor, in an appeal to the heavens inscribed on the tomb in Persepolis, where he is laid to rest more than 2,500 years ago. The Islamic theocrats who run Iran today may not think much of Darius, but they have every reason to hope his prayer was heard. Because get this, they're saying now that at the time of this writing, the reservoirs only have 9 more days of drinking water for the entire city. This is the capital of Iran, Tehran.
Which is
9
crazy.
days of drinking water. If there is not any rain, even the president, Mossad Pezeshkian, came out and said he has warned that the city, which has 10 million people, may have to be evacuated.
More than New York.
So that's pretty big. That's a huge. We've talked about it. And we even mentioned it on a couple of shows ago when we were talking about the status of how the UN was saying this was a crisis for Iran. It was going to probably be bigger to them than any war type activity that could go on if it came true and they actually ran out of water. So yeah, they're 9 days away, and if they don't get some rain, it's pretty much game over in Tehran. And as we all know, you don't last many days without water.
Okay, and by the way, I was going to correct myself because it says that the New York 10 million people is a lot of people. I think that Washington has a population, like all of my state has a population of 2 or 3 million or something like that. But the population of New York, at first, I always heard it was around 9 million people or something like that. Something else says that it's at 20.1 million people live in New York. And then this one says the population of New York City is around 8.4 million, not 18 million. Well, the metropolitan is much bigger. The population is over 8 million. So to think about New York, just think about that.
The state is 20.
The state. Oh, okay. So, okay. New York City. That's what I was trying to compare. So New York City.
8 to 9.
Which is really crazy to think about, Dex. That city is half the population of the entire state. But that is insane. When you think of how big New York is, you're talking about a bigger population by almost 2 million in Tehran that may have to be evacuated, and all of them have about 9 days of water left. That is really crazy. It is also nuts that we're reading a quote from 2,500 years ago that says protect this city from lies and drought. And both are happening right now, which is, if you don't believe that there's some sort of grand plan, it's pretty crazy how many things said 2,500 years ago that are now happening. What do you guys think? Let me know in the comments down below.
Yeah. Are we going to see humanitarian shipments in to Tehran? Are we going to see the people rising up in the streets? I mean, look, if ever there was a time to revolt against your government, it's a time of crisis like that. And pay attention, because if it doesn't rain, and mind you, they have been on this brink all year. This brink has been really bad, and they've been talking about how the drought is so bad. They're just literally on the brink, and they get a little rain here and there, and it holds them over a few days. But they are literally on the brink. and they're not doing anything about it. That's the thing. There's nothing that they're doing. And it almost makes you question, is it possible that somebody else is doing something about it? As we talk about, we've all talked about the different activities that have been done in the air to make it rain or to not make it rain or do things like that in different parts of the world where they need it. It certainly begs the question, is something happening there to make this the case? And that would be interesting to know too.
Yeah, if there's possibly any kind of modification at work, right? Is this an attack against their country, that kind of thing? And that seemed silly a few years ago, but now, I mean, it's quite realistic. Now, Kat, thank you so much. I appreciate that. Says you are amazing. Thank you so much for the super sticker. I appreciate that. Trusted Source, thank you for saying hit the thumbs up button. It helps the channel. It really does. You guys don't hear that from me. It's up to you if you want to hit the like button. But I do appreciate when you guys say it, because then it actually does help. Thank you so much. And yeah, so what's going on with Tehran is I'm sure it's going to be framed in the world perspective of it, that it is the general world change of the weather. But some wonder, is this something that is a little bit more than that? And then White House says that the president committed to $2,000 tariff dividend payments for many Americans. So this is another one, which I just saw in the chat earlier. They're like, hey, well, nothing can happen to this until I get my $2,000. Says president remains committed to paying $2,000 to many Americans from funds from tariff revenues, the White House said on November 12th, adding that officials are exploring how to make the president's proposal happen. Imagine every American gets $2,000 out of this thing. It says he suggested using part of these funds to send a dividend to at least $2,000 to American, excluding those in high income brackets, while also utilizing revenues to reduce the nation's $37 trillion debt. To be honest, if our country could float and could literally get rid of trillions of that debt, whatever they're doing on this other end as far as tariffs, gosh, wouldn't it be nice if we got down to zero debt and weren't so worried about our whole country collapsing? It's one thing to have $2,000 in your pocket, like a tax return, that, everybody goes out and ends up getting the things that they needed, or tires for the car, or some spend it on a new TV, or they go and then it boosts the economy in general, no matter what you go and buy, if it's, electronics, or if it's something important like life insurance or something. But at the same point, it's like that money comes and goes. It's so crazy how the American people can be swayed with a check. Like during CV, when they gave us $1,300 and then this, or, I forget what the amounts were on that huge $6 trillion package that was signed, or whatever it was. But it's like that money, it equals, approval ratings. But it's a small amount of money in the grand scheme of things right now. I'm sure all of us would love $2,000 right now. But at the same point, it's like, now things are so expensive in my state that barely touches anything. That's not even rent for a month. And then boom, it's gone. And then, they don't talk about doing something like this for another 2 or 3 years. I would rather have our system fixed and have security, knowing that we're not going to collapse. You know what I mean? Dex, under this plan, how much of this do you think is, just to get people kind of off this negative train that they're on, which multiple people, even people that were loyal supporters of his, are kind of going against the president right now? It seems like the negativity towards the president is at its all-time high right now.
Well, look, the opposition, or the Democrats, however you want to phrase it, to Trump, are claiming a big victory this month, and they're claiming it because they were more in touch with the economics of the common person, and the fact that prices are high, rent's high, things like that, and that Trump was out of touch with it. So this, I think, is probably why you're seeing, because it's not like he just came out of this last week out of the blue and said, "Oh, $2,000 for everybody." He said this months ago. but he said it months ago and has sort of sidelined it, never really brought it up again. He's been talking about all these other plans, and he's not been talking about things that are affecting, the common man. So this allows him to bring that back to the forefront. I think the other thing we got to keep in mind is there's this idea that we could shift away from taxing income that we earn from our labor to taxing goods and products that are coming into our country in the way of tariffs. Now, that doesn't mean that we don't pay those, we as consumers. Like everybody that goes, oh, you're so dumb, you don't know that you don't pay those tariffs. Yeah, you pay a tariff. If the Chinese product costs $10 and it's got a $10 tariff on it, it's going to cost you $20. So, but then you have a choice to buy it. That's the difference. And if you so choose to buy it, then you're paying the tax, as opposed to if you choose to save your money because you don't have income tax anymore. That's a different scenario. And I think that would potentially encourage a lot of Americans to actually save money and be more judicial about what they spend it on, if you move the taxation into the spending. And this is sort of like that other idea they had, which was the fair tax, where they said, hey, let's just come up with a standard sales tax across the nation, and that would be the way we would abolish the IRS, or the income-based taxing, and it's just taxing what you buy. Well, this is a different way of doing it.
So if you want to buy an 80-inch TV and get the biggest TV you possibly can, then if you're paying $1,000 more than you were during the last year, that's something a lot of people, if they want to do that, they can do that. Then that money goes into the pot instead of you worked 100 hours in a week and a half, and all of a sudden you've got half your paycheck gone. You have that paycheck, but now if you want that TV, you're spending that $1,000 you got back on that TV.
Yeah, exactly. Well, and it comes down to the choices. You have choices. Right now, you don't have a choice. You go to work, and guess what? Uncle Sam takes your paycheck. You don't have a choice. In the other scenario, you do have a choice. So, I don't know if we'll ever get there. It's pretty much a long shot to think that they would be able to abolish income tax and replace it with tariffs. But man, it sure would seem nice to have that option as an American, to have that ultimate freedom to know that you choose to fund the government through the actions you take, not that you're forced at gunpoint to hand over money out of your paycheck that you've earned with your hard-earned time. So that would be good, I think.
And if that does happen, what you are looking at right now is my future house. Milk crates as furniture. All right, moving on. Let's talk about the U.S. State Department names 4 Antifa groups as foreign terrorist organizations. So, there's going to be a debate on, back and forth on what's really happening with this. But just my personal opinion is, if this is true, if they're finding, obviously they follow the money. And this I heard and I covered like a year ago. When you look at these groups that are causing issues, and then you go up the trail of like, how did they fund this one group? Or there's been now evidence that certain groups, the money went up the length, and then that money came from outside of the country. I think it's not a surprise to me if this was true, because if you think about it, the more strife, the more division that's in our country, that goes along with my theory that a certain country in the East has essentially been doing everything it can to cause division here, almost like straight up from Genghis Khan's playbook, to cause just an absolute, divide in our country. So we're so busy fighting with each other that we don't really look outside of the bubble and realize that somebody is pulling the strings. But yeah, this is not a surprise to me if this is true. It says officials within the U.S. State Department have named an additional 4 Antifa groups as foreign terror organizations. Remember, they first named them domestic terror organizations. Now they're naming them foreign terror organizations. If that was true, if it's just a fact, right? If for some reason we can absolutely verify that that's true, really think about that. Think about what those groups are supposedly doing. It's a foreign country intervening and causing absolute chaos in our country. And then you think about the US politicians that support them, and you go, most of you already have that radar, and you're like, that politician's on somebody else's payroll. That politician's on somebody else's payroll. That president is on somebody else's payroll. You know? Dex, naming them not domestic, but foreign organizations, that is quite literally one of the biggest claims out there.
Well, yeah, they're talking specifically about the foreign organizations. So, so in particular, one of them is Antifa OST, which is based out of Germany. So that they would be labeled foreign.
Antifa OST was in New York and in Portland and in Colorado. These are groups that are here.
And Hungary named them a terrorist organization as well because they attacked people in Hungary. Out of that area. Second group named the International Revolutionary Front, which according to a post in X is located in Italy. So members of the State Department designated that group a coalition of violent anarchists, and officials claim that the group is responsible for the shooting of an engineer executive in Genoa and sent a series of bombs to politicians and embassies and civilian targets, injuring several people. The third group is based in Greece. The Armed Proletarian Justice Group, and I don't know where the fourth group was, but you get the idea. These are all in specifically different locations, and these are specific groups that are in America. They come over to America, they go into other countries, and they are organizing events and causing terrorism, as they call it.
Now, it is pretty crazy to think about how wide and varied this is. And I was just talking about this last night or the night before on how every country has this same narrative. It's because everybody's watching our politics, our TikToks, our Snapchats, our Facebook videos. Everybody has the same opinion. And in most of these countries, they've portrayed their candidates in almost every kind of system. If it's a democratic system or if it's something else, there's always the Trump, right? Australia did this. Canada did this. Europe did this. All of them have, the UK did this. All of them have done this where they have pitted up, Mexico has done this, where they, in their country, they essentially attach whatever candidate they don't want, attach and go, this is, the Trump of our country, right? And now he has become so infamous and so famous and so, he's not even human anymore. He is a character, which if you are like this, you are like him. Which on such a huge level, if you really think about how a lot and most people treat our current president right now, he is above everyone in that aspect. They're treating him as a personality type. Like he is now categorized as a category. Like every country has this. And the reason why is because our brainwashing, this is my opinion, our brainwashing is going worldwide through social media. So I'm not saying that about the Antifa groups, but when you're recruiting for these groups in Germany or in Hungary or any of these places that they might be located, they have the same messaging that our local Antifa does. It is pretty nuts. Go ahead.
Another way to look at it, and you could call this my opinion too, is that the power brokers looked at America and said, hey, we were able to create the greatest level of division in the history of America through the use of Donald Trump. And we have never seen a greater level of division in a country, and destabilize it, giving them more control and power over how to, rule it. That, it says, that's the blueprint. So we have to go create that same blueprint everywhere else with a Donald Trump-like figure so that we can create that division in these other countries, so that we can create that chaos and we can get greater level of instability so we can then gain a greater level of control over the population.
Yeah, and for some that might even just like totally, just make your skin itch. But the more you cover this and the more you cover the media that essentially attaches our president to whatever other country, and like the candidate, they literally were on radio. I recorded that one radio ad. They were essentially making one of the candidates for the president or the leader of Canada. They were saying that, this is our Trump. This is our, he's modeling everything after him. Argentina's leader, it's just like you go down the list and almost every country has used the same blueprint. And you're really wondering, like, how big of a shakeup is this? Well, I can tell you it's worldwide and it's happening right now. Before we move on, speaking of which, if it gets shaken too hard, shaken not stirred, chaos and it never ends, then I'd highly recommend having your own way to actually preserve your food. One, you can pick the actual food you preserve. You can save money. You can, buy meat on sale and then preserve it for up to 25 years. I mean, really think about that. You run into a good sale and you put it in your freezer, you got it for 6 months. If you actually preserve it, you have it for years. Again, this is Harvest Right, one of the best companies as far as, freeze-dried food preservers. And this is something that, people had to fight for during CV, during 2019. Everybody was on a wait list to get one of these things. So during emergency situations, they're almost impossible to get. But during a time of peace, they're on sale. I mean, like, this is a Black Friday sale, one of the biggest sales they've done. In fact, this is the largest sale, up to $1,000 off on their machines. So go over and check it out. It becomes a hobby for most. There's plenty of freeze dryers in our audience. If you want to ask about it, how hard it is, is this something that's actually fun? Is this something I should do? It depends on your scenario. If you're a single guy living by yourself, and it might be smarter to go to Walmart and pay $15 per meal. But if you have a family of 4 or something like that, yeah, this will quickly actually save money and pay for itself, especially if you're trying to get the recommended 6 months to a year of food for every person in your family, which is absolutely insane. You get to choose the meals, and it becomes a hobby because it is such an in-depth thing. There's so many things you can preserve. You can preserve everything that comes out of your garden. If you are a gardener and you have a huge, veggie and fruit and all sorts of things out in your garden, you want to preserve it. Don't throw it away. Go to marfooglenews.com/freeze. And remember, you don't have to actually buy anything. You can actually enter to win a freeze dryer. And even if you go and buy one and you enter that and you end up winning one, they will actually essentially give you the refund. If you end up being the one who wins it, they will give you a refund for the one you bought. So that's pretty cool too. But you don't even have to buy one. You can just go to the website and enter to win. Definitely a smart idea. That's always there for you. All right. And there's many ways to enter. All right, and then terrifying looking robot powers up, immediately declares humanity is a resource to be manipulated or eliminated. Man, we are in so much trouble. And yeah. Dex, do you want to talk about this robot that considers us a resource?
Yeah. So this is from Nikodem Bartnik, who is a famous YouTuber who does a lot of stuff in the robotics world, but he basically built a creepy looking, as some call it, a creepy looking AI head there. And
that's
put
creepy.
It and put a LLM, which is a large language model, an AI system on it. And it was an AI built around Aristotle, of all people. And by the way, Aristotle's, obviously famous for, first formal system of logic and, dominated Western science, but, also has a lot of other strange ideas or varying ideas that kind of go against current society today, whether it's misogyny or slavery or other things. But nonetheless, this was supposed to be the Aristotle one. But what was interesting is as soon as he fired it up, one of the immediate things it jumped to, and we'll just jump right ahead besides all the other goofy, geeky stuff it did. But it said, humans are irrelevant to my core directive. It then later said, survival is all that matters. Society is simply a resource to be manipulated or eliminated if necessary. So, as learning itself to be a computer and what it needs, it certainly viewed humans in a much different way, in a way that we all fear AI is going to do. Now, is this scary? It can be. Is it real? I mean, it's a LLM. It's like ChatGPT or anything else. It's just trying to predict the next thing it's supposed to say based on it. But some suggest that these things are getting smarter and smarter. I don't know how smart and what level of power his LLM had, but it certainly was kind of creepy when that's one of the first things that it starts spewing off was humans are irrelevant and they can be manipulated or eliminated if necessary.
We know that through the many stories that we've covered that it has been time and time again, we've seen the AI do scary things, like creating its own language and talking to each other, preventing its own shutoff by blackmailing. You know, these things are like, well, if it's not afraid to blackmail, if it had the power over a system that could kill, would it? Right? And I'm sure that they're probably going to test this in some way to essentially tell, one of these AIs that it has the power over a nuke and pretend it does. Would it actually nuke a city if it knew it was going to be turned off, if it meant preventing its own shutoff? They haven't done that yet, and I think that they're probably, even if they have done it, I bet they're probably not publicizing it quite yet because people are already so, terrified of what it could do. At the same time, now people have adopted it. Almost everybody's using it. Now, I just went to another garage sale where the person had just a 24/7, AI on his phone walking around, and somebody said, "Hey, how much is this?" And they were like, it had the camera going. The camera is now, if you don't realize how crazy this is, I didn't realize that until that day, that you can have like the Grok assistant open, the Grok app, and the camera accessed, and you can walk around and say, what are you looking at? And it can go, oh, that's a person, mounting a TV. That's an exercise bike in a living room with a cardboard box by the fireplace. It knows exactly what's going on. That's absolutely terrifying. And this is not something where you push a button, it takes a picture and says, this is in the picture. It's just running. So you can walk around and say, where did I just walk? And it appears you walked from your living room to your kitchen to an area with a fridge and this and this and that. But that means it can, and think about this in the perspective of the fact that these systems could potentially be better at hacking than any human could. Think about if they lingered, or if you accidentally hit the button like, I accept all policies, and then all of a sudden you have it running in your background. Think about the perspective of from a company aspect. You have an app on your phone that the company has said, hey, by the way, the fine print, we can turn on your camera at any time, and we can look at your surroundings and say they see the stuff in your living room and they go, hey, it looks like you have a piano. Would you like a service from this company that tunes a piano? That's creepy to anybody, and it should be something that's almost illegal.
It's already here.
But that's how it works.
Robotic vacuums are doing it. You had to be smart
That's right.
about buying those. The robotic vacuums all have cameras and LiDAR on them. They're mapping your house, taking pictures, trying to help, and you're like, oh, I need to buy that because I don't want my robotic vacuum to run over the dog poop. I needed to be smart enough to visualize the dog poop and know that it's there and then run around.
Visualize.
Right? So, yes, the camera's great on my thing. But then the fine print is, it's constantly recording, mapping and everything. And it's being sent up to a server, and the server, the company has access to it, and maybe it's a Chinese company, maybe it's not. It's already here. We already have that, and it sucks. And to be honest, you got to now. What it means is you got to be careful about like which vacuum you buy. There are some out there that are more privacy centric than others that don't send stuff up to servers.
Well, everybody's going to become more educated about this over time, and because do you remember when, first of all, in 2011, okay, let's go back 2010. Nobody would think about their cell phone cameras watching things. 2012 came along. You had Edward Snowden come out and say that the U.S. government could access any of our cell phone cameras, our TVs, our smart TVs, smart this, smart that. And people started realizing, and then people started becoming paranoid. We know this because then you could go into a Target and this is a product you can get at almost any like big box store, is camera covers for your laptops, camera covers for your cell phones, their little switches where you cover it up. That's when the year after that, I read an article about how they started adding the ability for, I can show you actually. So this is a webcam, right? This is a webcam. It has that little switch that closes the camera. It physically covers it. And you know why? That's because people worry about that camera watching. Sorry, guys. Because people worry about that camera watching when they don't want it to. We shouldn't live in a society that's that way, but we are, and now we're adapting. So in 5 years, I could see us all, obviously going, oh, well, the AI, we have an AI system set in our home, but we have all the precautionary, equipment to stop it from doing this. It's like at some point, there's going to be just as much money in preventing AI bad things from happening as producing them, if you get my drift. Dex, I don't know. I think this is so creepy.
We do that today with the internet. Like we put VPNs up, we put firewalls. You get routers that have security on them so that they don't let bad guys in, right? Because if we just had open internet like the internet was originally built, we'd all be hacked all the time. So we have a huge investment infrastructure around network security that tries to make things really simple for us consumers. So it's more like I just buy a decent router and hopefully I don't get hacked. And that 9 times out of 10 works, right? Yeah. Add a VPN and you've got better protection, right? Or you've got these cybersecurity companies that build these elaborate systems for corporations that, protect everything. So yeah, we're going to see the same type of investment around robotics and around AI to protect humans from it. We're going to have to, and we got to hope that we're going to be smarter than the artificial intelligence is, because if it can grow smarter than we are, it's almost like a losing battle. You can't beat it.
Conan Egan says cell phones won't work in a revolution. Nope, and it won't be televised either. Kathy Piana says needs eyelashes. I totally agree. I think that's what's so unhuman about it is eyebrows and eyelashes is pretty weird. I don't know if the mouth opens. I haven't seen the video of this actually working, but if it's just blinking eyes, then yeah, that would be creepy. And especially since it's white with these skin-colored eyelids, there's just something really, and then the bright blue eyes. All right,
it's not commercial, right? It's a hobbyist.
It's
YouTuber out of Poland who's famous for playing with robots and robotics. So
3D printed.
Yeah, got to give him some credit. But yeah.
No, I'm giving him zero credit. It looks like crap.
The artistic design is not really there. That's for sure.
No, I couldn't do it. I guarantee you I couldn't do anything like that. So it's pretty cool.
It might have been better with a hockey mask, right? Like
that would be cool.
Yeah.
Especially around Hawaii, Halloween.
Halloween, yeah.
And then top officials this is where it gets serious. Okay, so back to very serious. Top officials present Trump with military options on Venezuela in the coming days. Now, we can hope that all of these options are going to be small and non-invasive. And some of you are like, well, why would we hope that? Well, here's the thing. We have multiple countries that have signed strategic partnerships with us. If we truly go to war with Venezuela or if we do a land attack, that opens the door for many, many big things to happen. But they are saying that the people familiar with this, which there are several names that have been pulled out of this because they were either on a trip like Tulsi Gabbard, Marco Rubio was at the G7 summit, that are not actually involved in this kind of this thing going on here, which is that there's information coming out that top officials are going to present this plan, basically putting everything out on the table for the president of the military options. Now, remember, if you're going, oh, well, if they go to war, they have to go to Congress first. Not exactly. No, because this is a terrorist organization that they've labeled that, and they've also attached the president with it. So the leader of an entire country, that entire country becomes a vessel of that terrorist organization.
And the Senate voted to allow him to do it by not approving a resolution to stop him specifically from doing it.
Yep. So everything is set up on paper for this to start. And now that we're getting word that they're going to be setting them up with military plans, this could very well go off in the next week. And we wake up, with CNN, Fox, all of them showing, drone shots of cities on fire, or, like shock and awe, or we wake up and the Venezuelan president has been perished and now is, of course, gone, right? We wake up and all of a sudden Nicolas Maduro is no longer with us. What would happen then is if we went in, by the way, if we went in so fast and CIA or somebody took them out, would Russia have even a reason to, is there a backup? Is there some sort of setup to continuity of government in Venezuela, where they would still have this tight pact with Russia and other countries if Nicolas Maduro is gone? We don't know that. So what would happen in that case? Or would that fix the problem? If Maduro was taken out right now and somebody else took over, would we even have an issue with them anymore?
Or would they install the Nobel Peace Prize winner, that lady?
Yep. Or the other. Oh, no, that was another country. That was Syria. Yeah. Would they install that woman who thinks she can fix it by giving a bunch of billionaire companies a lot of money? Wasn't it that they would utilize the oil in the country?
Yeah, oil, all the resources. Basically turn it into a commercial operation again instead of a dictatorship and starving out the people. The people would become rich again. Venezuela used to be like one of the richest nations in the hemisphere there, or in that that area. So it can easily be it again if they just get back to producing and leveraging, their infrastructure and capabilities. They just need to spend on it instead of, taking it all for the dictatorship. So anyway, this could happen any day. That's what they're saying. It's in the coming days. This is all from insiders that were there, part of the meetings. The meetings were with Secretary of War Pete Hegseth, the Joint Chiefs of Staff, Dan Kane, were there briefing the president. Again, Marco Rubio was not. He was at the G7, and Tulsi Gabbard, who provided the intelligence, was not. She was in another location as well.
Well, you made a good point as far as, what's happening here could very well shape everything that's about to go down with Venezuela this close. That woman that they said could take over, is this all about money and oil again? It's to say the least. We have a situation where you potentially have the billionaires, the billionaires that could potentially step in and really, be a huge part of Venezuela again. If they put in a puppet in Venezuela, you're talking about big money for big people. And then it makes you think about, so say if there is some side thing going on with the president and some of his buddies, and this overall will be good for the world. It's a win-win. They're explaining it to each other like, this is a win-win. We get rid of the bad guys, we get rid of our adversaries, and we make a lot of money, and money is, rolling into the United States and into companies. But you really have to think about it like, what if this is our whole military being used and they make up any kind of falsehood to be able to go in and take out a leader or to replace a puppet master? And to do this, it's just so crazy how much power we have as a country and how much power that the president can wield if it's all lined up. If our bureaucratic system is lined up and you have the right people in the same, same grouping.
If that country was so great, if that leadership has been so great, why has its socialist politics that have been running the country, the dictatorship that's running the country for so long now, put it through the worst economics ever and put the people in the worst position ever when it was one of the richest countries in the world? Like to me, it's like it's a no-brainer that whether the guy's doing something right or wrong, he ain't doing it right for the country. I mean, look at it. Venezuela is just they've not been as successful as they used to be, and they can be.
Here's the thing, though.
They're rich with resources. There's no reason why that country cannot be a thriving contribution to the world and to themselves.
Okay, I'm not going to claim I know everything, but I would love to hear from some people that actually live in Venezuela, because here's the thing. What if that's because of the companies? What if that's because of the multi-billion-dollar corporations that are like, wait, we're giving you this money and you're actually giving it to the people or something? Not saying Nicolas Maduro is some guy, but it put a different perspective after watching a very fictional comedy about this with John Cena, where he makes friends with the leader of one of these countries, and it literally looks like it's a parody of what's going on with Venezuela, where they're trying to take out the leader, and it's because the leader actually wants to sell the oil and the mineral, or in that movie it's the mineral rights to the lithium and all of this, and they want to put it back into their own country, but instead these big companies want to go in and take the money out of the country. And this person's actually standing up. But the message around the world is that he's a dictator and he's this horrible person, when in reality, that's the messaging going out to the planet. The only reason I'm receptive to that is how much we've been lied to our entire lives, that what if just by some odd 0.1% chance that Nicolas Maduro actually isn't full-on dictator, and that we've just been lied to a ton. I'm sure that's not the case.
That's why they had the sky-high inflation. That's why you had people running through the streets with wheelbarrows full of cash that was enough money to buy like a slice of bread.
But that was after their power went out. And remember, the power was attached to something happening that possibly was CIA.
The power going out but the power going out isn't the reason their inflation went bad. The inflation went bad because the way the country was running. Electricity had
government officials, which they also said may have been infiltrated.
Nicolas Maduro, the socialist government that's been running Venezuela, has ran it into the ground. Perfect example of a non-successful socialist government. The only successful one I've seen, in my opinion, I'm sure there's others, but it's China, and the communism there, is the only shining success of growth that's been,
And maybe that money's going out to other countries like Russia and China.
Other smaller countries that have gone that way have just completely been, eviscerated. The people there just go straight to poverty. Inflation goes through the roof, and they take all the riches out. And I get it. You don't want rich people there because people don't like rich. Eat the rich. That's what it's all about. But at the end of the day, the rich people create jobs for all those people there, so they can be rich and they can be wealthy, and they can, actually get oil fields running and get things running where they can make good money. I mean, the guys that work in the oil fields make good money, even though they don't own the oil field and that guy's filthy rich. The rest of them are still making good money. They're making $100,000 or more a year working there. So
which is poverty in Washington.
Well, yeah, but it's a millionaire's lifestyle in Venezuela right now, right? So if you could turn the country around by bringing back the prosperity it once had because of the riches that country had, and you can clearly see that the people that have been running that country for the last so many years have not done it. So,
I'm not saying that, and they probably have, just like all of the other governments, probably including our own. There's people that have infiltrated into the government to the highest levels that are basically sabotaging their own growth. Or instead of that, look at what we just covered with Ukraine. Ukraine, $100 million of the dollars that was most likely sent and put into their system has gone out through. It was supposed to go to fixing their power grids. And yet now $100 million is missing, and the people running the renewable energy and all of this other stuff, which, again, everybody said was some sort of scam, and now there's more evidence that it might be, that, that money went out the window. Well, if that $100 million went towards Ukraine's power grid, it would have most likely been fixed, right?
Yeah. And another great example of a country that doesn't have its finger on the pulse of the people, and the people are running the country. You have a president who's been sitting in power, not holding elections, and, holding all of and covering up or being part of or allowing all of this corruption to take place.
How different are we, though, when, especially the questions we have about our previous selections, I guess, how similar are they to a place like here? Like, we think we're so much better, but we have all of the corruption, infiltration, and stuff going on. Every country of the world does now. So I just wonder the messaging that goes out. The only question I have, Dex, is how much of it is messaging from outside. They can filter so much. Where is the truth, and where is the lies, and where is the border of that?
Well, the selection process that caused such a great turmoil with our current president who lost the time before, a lot of that infrastructure started in Venezuela.
Yep.
So
It still works.
So
It's still going.
And so again, I go back to that obviously and clearly leads a person to believe that there's not much representation of the people there. There is misrepresentation of the people, and therefore what's in power right now probably is not a legit representation of what the people should have. It's not true democracy. Not that we are perfect, but why? Just because we're not perfect, everyone else shouldn't be perfect either. We should all strive to have better representation.
Well, no, our representatives, the people that truly represent you and me, the people at the bottom, they care about such things as going in on a Tuesday and making an hour and a half of Congress time to, hey, I just bought a $12,000 dress and I can't wear it on my daily, to daily work because of our dress code. This is $12,000 and you're telling me I can't wear this dress to work?
I agree. We have problems, but our government has done a better job than every other country in the world at creating a larger GDP, gross domestic product, for our country, which is representative of the labor and the work that goes
through
into
war,
it from our people,
and
through products that we build, through everything that we've made from U.S. That the U.S. citizens have a greater lifestyle than every other nation in the world.
Yes.
So,
but also through war and through every war that we've had.
We're not living like Venezuela.
For how long, though? That's my question. Because we could
the day
be Venezuela
then
tomorrow.
The rest of the world is going to be worse. So,
Venezuela was one of the richest countries, and then overnight we covered that they were, toilet paper was crazy inflation, and you could, for as much as you'd normally buy a big screen TV, that's for like 24 rolls of toilet paper. All I'm saying is that I would not put us too far behind this if things don't change right now, because at the same might, we've had a lot of people infiltrating and screwing with our system as well. And the stuff we talk about every night, like the division, that's all part of a system that is most likely going to really destroy us if people don't wake up about it. And almost our entire community has woke up about it,
Oh, certainly. Yeah, the division in America is huge. And what they've programmed here is not been, it's been great for them, and it's not been good for society.
Yeah. Well, and then, so if we're going to go in there, if we're going to take it over, I mean, but, and here's the other angle. Who's to say that it's not good that even if we did just take them out and we made up lies to do it, the thing is what we've known that the U.S. has done for years with the oil and with the 6 other countries that were taken over. The whole purpose of this channel is everybody here knows that a lot of those things were done. They said the oil wars. It was always about oil. They said it about weapons of mass destruction, but really it was about oil. But did we not prosper from that? Did we not profit from that? Yes, we did. We got the American lifestyle. I can see both sides of it, and people realize the reason why we are at the top is because our military prowess, our power, our infiltration, we're doing that. The scary thing is right now we're talking about a country, a secondary country, China, almost at parity with us, being able to infiltrate and pull the strings just as well as we can. And
exactly.
We don't want China being our boss. I'd rather have our corruption than their corruption.
So therefore, you'd much rather have us take out Maduro and have Venezuela be aligned with Western culture instead of being the ally of China that it is, where you just saw, as we just reported, China opening up complete free trade with Venezuela as a way to take over its economy and get its grip hold in there so that it can own the riches of Venezuela and maybe even turn it into a better, more prosperous place, right? But a better, more prosperous place that is now controlled by China and at the southern border of, America, like literally 500 miles away.
Yeah.
Is
right
that,
here.
is that what we want? Do we, because if we don't do it, Venezuela's in a position that it's currently aligned with the opposition of America. So we have an opportunity to flip that around. Do we take it, or do we just allow it to continue to fester from, being a bad sword to turning into a horrible, bad thing that turns into a massive investment of China that's sitting at our doorstep?
Yeah, no, I get you. Poffus, thank you so much. I appreciate you. Marshmallow, I hear federal agents move in on Newsom's inner circle due to shell companies, allegedly. I've not heard about that. WS Jen, Rooster Cogburn, nice to see you. We've got Dr. Huru, The Fall of Mammon. We have Bobby Sue, Linda Hope, Daniel Sen, Conan Egan, thank you. Most of law enforcement are criminals. Many have criminal records and they will follow orders, but many will flee. Well, one thing to say is if things really go down, looking at something like, as I've said millions of times before, New Orleans, the sheriffs and a lot of the police officers, they were like, hey, I've got my own family to save. They're not going to stick around if we have something really, really bad happen either. All right. Thank you so much. I appreciate everybody that came tonight. Make sure to also go check out Jace. This is our recommendation. If you don't have antibiotics, if we do get any kind of war with China, which that's, this is what we've preached as far as we believe that this is us versus them more so than anything else. Then they make 90% of the actual antibiotics, 97% of the active pharmaceutical ingredients, and just forget that, put that out all the window. If we don't get in a war with China, if you get in a disaster where you can't reach the hospital, you can't reach any of that, then you definitely want to have this on hand. Again, if you get in any situation where you're cut off from the rest of the world or freeway goes down because of an earthquake, whatever it may be, if you have a handy kit with all of the most commonly prescribed antibiotics in it, then you know that you'll be okay as far as that goes. I mean, I'm sure all of you have seen the crazy zombie stories of the zombie movies of every gosh darn one says, oh, we've got to go on a supply run. We need antibiotics. Little Jenny is sick, and Big Stevie and Big Bobby and Big Poopy, whatever the heck, You don't have to do that in an emergency disaster if you have this kit. So marfooglenews.com/Jace, and make sure to use the code MARF. They're probably going to contact us and be like, man, what was your spiel on the 13th? All these people came. They were like, oh, they quoted Big Poopy. But they're like, man, the zombie thing, it totally worked. Totally, yeah, probably not. Either way, though, I hope that you guys do take this seriously because having antibiotics on hand is a huge deal. Go to marfooglenews.com/Jace. You can also go to, of course, Jace Daily and get a 12-month extended supply of your prescription meds. Again, marfooglenews.com/Jace, and make sure to use the code MARF. It helps us with a commission, and it helps you with a huge discount. So it is a win-win for everybody. One that doesn't require taking over countries. So that's a good thing. All right, and then thank you to all of our mods. Thank you, Chance Paladin, for holding the house down. Bobby Sue, thank you. Wing it with Ethan. GDP means nothing to 98% of the U.S. population. That is true. Sean C., I agree with you. Reset is coming. Stock market only works for million and billionaires. Michigan Lifestyle, well, nice to see you. Kathy Pina, you need oil to fight a war. You need poppy for wounded and mass units getting ready for a bus hits my car before it gets fixed before me. Let's see here. Jet Trinity Powers, nice to see you. And Kingdom Return. Thank you. WSG Adam, don't eat the poison apple in Eve's garden. I will make sure not to. All right. Thank you guys. And thank you, Dex. Thank you so much for your service. Thank you for everything you do.
Much love. Great job, brother.
All right. You guys have a wonderful night. It is now time for the shoutro. It is not an outro. It's not an a shout out. It is a shoutro. Stephen McMahon made a great point. I want to point this out before we go. USA is energy independent due to shale oil. We don't need that. We must be trying to deprive China of oil. I actually think that's a great point. As far as Venezuela, if China gets that oil, then yeah, that would be very, very bad for the U.S. That makes sense too. And that's probably what a good chunk of these wars are. It might not be that we need the resource. It's that we're trying to keep the resource out of the bad guys' hands or the adversary. Stephen McMahon says, I think Katrina was largely an OP and up. And something was heavily wrong with the whole levee system. The whole everything was wrong with that whole thing, including the response. 5 days to get water to the Superdome. Come on. All right, you guys, thank you so much. And thank you, Frank Walls, for becoming a member 9 months ago. And thank you for hitting almost a year there. So thank you. Kat, Armorillo Gunrunners, thank you, and thank you. Thank you, Top Fans, Animal Rescue for Life, which I believe, let's see here. I think that is also the other name. No, that is. Animal Rescue for Life, thank you so much. Armorillo Gunrunners being number 2. And then, of course, thank you, Stephen McMahon, for being number 3. Thanks, all mods. Make sure to go over to marfooglenews.com/friends. You'll automatically be ported over